What's up, guys? This is Jesse DeRozier with Hydrilla Gorilla Guide Service here in Lake Guntersville. Today's date is June 6, 2025, and this is What's on the Deck. So last week, unfortunately, I was on vacation, so I did not get a video up for you guys. I apologize about that. However, I was gone for the entire week through Memorial Day weekend and was not on the water and had absolutely nothing to report to you guys. So I apologize. But that said, when I did get back, got out on the water, did a little bit of scouting very quickly before starting to run trips, and had a very, very busy week this week, running doubles multiple days. And we have been all over the lake from top to bottom, seems like, and have done a lot of different things. So we've got a lot actually on the deck this week. I'm going to go through and break it down based on kind of the areas that we're fishing, what lures we're using in those areas, and hopefully that'll kind of help you out as you're tying up rods and getting ready to get out on the water this week. So that said, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with kind of that mid-water column, say 6 to 10 foot grass flats. That specific area, we have been throwing some moving baits. If we've got windy conditions, going with the chatterbait has definitely been a very productive bait. Chatterbait in that, say, 6 foot of water, that ½ ounce version is kind of my go-to. If I'm going out a little bit deeper, if I'm heading out, say, in that 8-10 foot of water, that's where I'm going to be picking up that 3/4 ounce. That 3/4 ounce jackhammer is definitely the way to go. You can get it down there, kind of keep it ticking that grass as it's starting to grow up out there in those areas, and maintain grass contact. That is very vitally important, guys. If you're running way up above the grass and not hitting anything, will you get bites? Yes. Will you get as many bites as if you're making contact with the grass? No. Granted, you're going to fight with clearing the bait, here and there, but if you're making contact with the grass, you will get a lot more bites. That said, the next bait that I'm throwing in those areas, again, keeping this just above the grass. This one's a little bit harder to avoid getting the grass loaded on the bait than obviously with the chatterbait. However, this has been very rewarding with the number of fish that we've been catching on it. So if you've got, I guess, the skill set to take that on, that actually can get you quite a few more bites. It's a little bit more subtle, but it does take a little bit more skill in being able to still kind of tick the grass, but not be burying your bait in the grass or staying way up above it. That one, though, they will actually hit some, even if you're not making grass contact, just in the fact that it does look like a shad out there running around. The next bait is in that same area. That 6 foot zone is going to be the lipless. Now, those areas that have 3 foot of grass in 6 foot of water, it's ideal right now. If you can find schools even out in 8-9 foot of water, which we actually did this week, I saw one fish blow up, and I was like, I wonder if that could be more than just a single fish. Started trolling that direction. I went to dig a spook out from my box. Realized when I looked up that there was quite a bit of eelgrass floating in that area, and decided to forego the spook and actually pick up the trap, because it'll get down below it and I can actually get it work at least, quite a ways back before it gets fouled up. With the spook, it's going to get fouled up pretty quick. First second it picks up a piece of eelgrass, it's done. It's just coming straight back to you. So I fired the trap out there. Very first fish was a 4-pounder. Got that one unhooked, fired back out there. The next one was a 3-pounder. I was like, okay, we obviously got more than just one fish. We might have a school going here. Proceeded to fish it. We ended up catching 17 fish out of that school. So if you find them, if you see even a single fish blow up, definitely check it out. You may have found a group that is actually there, and a good choice right now for that situation is definitely going to be a trap. A spook would also be a good option if it's not covered up with eelgrass. However, the lake is covered, seems like, everywhere in floating eelgrass right now. TVA really needs to get those grass guys out there and get them going, because they're kind of running around on the lake, but I've not seen any of them actually picking anything up. Anyway, get off my soapbox there. The next bait is the Producer Swim Baits Swiminator. That is the 5-inch version. If I'm going for bigger bites, I'm going to be throwing the 5-inch. If I'm going for numbers, I'm going to be throwing the 3.5-inch. Again, on that Owner Flashy Swimmer. On the 5-inch bait, I'm throwing a 3/8 with I think it's a 6/0 hook. If I'm throwing the 3.5, I'm throwing a 1/4 ounce, I think is what it is, on a 5/0. And those baits, one will get you more numbers, one is absolutely gonna get you better size. But again, it fishes very clean. So if you're in an area that has really thick grass, you can run it through there with no problem. Where, you know, even your chatterbait sometimes will even foul up if the grass gets too thick. That's my option, to be able to come in to those areas and be able to fish it efficiently. Those fish are really liking that thicker grass right now. So if you find thicker clumps of grass, it's worth poking around those grass clumps right now, because as the sun gets up, gets higher, we're getting these high bluebird days. We're getting, you know, the heat of the summer. They're looking for some shade. They ain't got no eyelids, so they need some shade over their eyes. So they're utilizing that thicker grass right now. So if you can find it, by all means, that's a really good option to get in there. Couple of things that I like to do, especially with that swim bait, is going to be add some thump gel to it, guys. Put some scent on it. It will make a big difference. The other option that I would suggest is with some of these soft plastics. If they're butting up to a lead head, I would definitely make sure that you've got the Avid Angler Solutions fishing glue. Those two things I keep on my deck all the time, and that's the reason why you hear me talk about them. It's about what's on the deck. That stays out. Makes that big a difference in how much soft plastics I'm going through, as well as how many fish we put in the boat on a day-to-day trip. All right, so that was our 6 to 10 foot kind of grass flats, grass ledges, kind of main river areas, kind of all of that kind of 6 to 10 foot zone. The next thing that we did around some of these grass flats is actually going for, again, a big bite. We did it today for about an hour, is going with the bull wakes. The bull wake shad, as well as the bull wake gill. Both of those are getting play right now. So if you're looking for a big bite, guys, it's definitely not something that you're gonna, catch 40 fish on in a day. But if you're looking for quality fish, those baits will get it done. It takes a little bit of work to figure out exactly where to throw them, how to throw them. But if you put the time in, they will absolutely produce for you. The second situation that we worked this week was ledges. So on ledges, I go through a rotation, as most guys who are ledge fishermen do. My first bait on a rotation is always going to be a crankbait. Now, if you're working, say, a ledge that's 18 feet deep, you don't just want a crankbait that's going to dive 18 feet. You want one that's, say, going to dive 20, 22 feet. If it's 16 feet, then you want one that's going to dive 18 to 20 feet. You need it to be rutting bottom. So what we're looking for is those fish that are actually positioned on the bottom is where we're running this crankbait. We're not running it through mid-water column. We're actually running this on the bottom. If you look at the bill of this crankbait, you'll see the color. It's not clear anymore. That bait has been beat into the rocks, the shell. And that's what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to get it down there, rut it into the bottom, and that's what's going to entice these fish to bite. So first bait in for me is always going to be a crankbait. Early in the season, if you've been watching the videos, you notice I was throwing that chartreuse blue. Usually when they first come out for the season, I like to throw something bright. You're going to get around some whites. The whites like chartreuse. You're going to catch some whites on it. It's just part of the deal in dealing with them. But as we progress, I still got some chartreuse in there. That's the citrus shad, but it's a little bit less bright. And as more and more time progresses, I'm going to lean more and more towards more natural colors. Second bait on the rotation for me is going to be the big worm. 10, 12-inch worm. You can go as big as you want to. I mean, you can throw a 15-inch worm. They will absolutely eat it. When these fish first come out onto the ledges, they are looking for big baits. Now, let me go ahead and give you this caveat this week. With the ledge bite, it was really good a couple weeks ago until the Toyota series got here. Toyota series put a lot of pressure on those ledges very quickly. It was followed up by the BFL and then followed up by the Foodland tournament. What fish had made it out to the ledges got beat up really bad. They are still somewhat in those areas, but they don't want to play right now. A lot of those got sore-lipped. A lot of those got taken to the weigh-ins. And as a result, the ledge bite is kind of slow right now. There will be more waves of fish coming out there, but I've spent a lot of time actually idling this week, and there's not a lot to be found. If you find it, you might have found a little gold mine, because there's not a bunch of places out there yet that these fish have made it to. Now, let's get back to the bait. Sorry about that. Just wanted to give you that kind of rundown on that, so you don't think that I'm saying that this is absolutely the way to crush them. I'm just telling you guys what's on my deck, what I physically used and threw this week. So next in rotation on those ledge fish is going to be a football head jig. The football head jig, depending on the depth of the ledge, will dictate what size I throw, whether it's a 1/2 ounce, a 3/4, or a 1 ounce. I'm going to work that bait in several different ways. If it seems like a slower drag retrieve was working pretty good with that worm, then I'm probably just going to either slow drag it or slow reel it and just let that football head just kind of wobble across the bottom. The other is going to be kind of bumping it and pausing it, and that tends to get a lot of bites. The last way is actually stroking the jig. That's something that not many guys do anymore. Some of your old school guys that have been ledge fishing for a long time will remember this. Don't know if they still do it or not, but it's a technique of being able to catch fish that are suspended like you would a flutter spoon. Actually stroking the jig, hopping it up off the bottom. And that actually is our next set of baits. Is not for fish that are glued right to the bottom. And that's typical of when they're pulling pretty heavy current. Those fish are going to glue to the bottom. When they slack that current up, say on the weekends, they stop pulling current. When that happens, a lot of these fish will move up in the water column. They're going to suspend. When those fish are suspended, they're going to roam around. They're going to be all over the place. And they may be 4 foot off the bottom. They may be 6 foot off the bottom. You just kind of have to figure that out. If you've got live scope or any form of live, that's pretty easy. If you don't, you may have to idle directly over these fish, get a shot with your 2D, your down imaging, whatever, and actually get a look and see kind of where they're set up at. Now, keep that in mind that these fish are constantly on the move. They change constantly. Having live scope has definitely taught me that these fish, just because you go over them with down imaging, you see, oh, they're at 4 foot, doesn't mean they're going to stay there. These fish are on the move constantly. So it's a good place to start, but if you don't have live, this is what you do. So next set of baits is going to be for those suspended fish. Don't fish TVA and not have a hair jig on your deck. There's a lot of different brands out there. Some people call it a preacher jig, some people call it a shuttlecock, but a hair jig. 1/2 ounce, 5/8 is probably going to do the majority of the work. You're going to throw it out there, let it get all the way to the bottom, and you're not going to pop it. You're going to reel it. You're going to reel quickly about 4 times. It's going to bring it up about 4 feet. You're going to pause, let it pendulum back to the bottom. Reel 4 times, let it come up and back to the bottom. If you don't get bit on that cast, your next one do 5. what it's doing is each time that you add that extra reel turn, you're pulling it into the next foot of water column. So for me, usually if I'm watching it on live, say 4 reel turns will pull it up to about 4 foot off the bottom. 5 reel turns going to pull it 5 foot. 6 reel turns 6 foot. So that gives you a way to be able to kind of get a measure on how these fish are set up. So if you don't have live scope, you can't see where your bait's at, that's the way that you do it, and be able to figure out exactly where in the water column you need to be cranking that up. Next is going to be flutter spoon. So again, just like I was talking about with the jig, popping it up in the water column. If not proficient at this, start with a smaller one. A 3 even you could start with. They make them in 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. The 8 is going to wear you out very quickly. If you fish all the time, you know what you're doing, have at it. If you're new to it and you're trying to get into it, start with the smaller ones. You'll catch more fish. You'll kind of build the tolerance to be able to throw it. And you'll also build confidence in the bait a lot faster. The 8-inch definitely going to draw those bigger bites for sure. But if you're trying to build confidence in a bait that you've never really thrown, you know, starting out with a 4 or 5-inch spoon is probably a really good call. Again, that same thing. Say you pop it, you might do 3/4 of a pop on the rod stroke to be able to lift it up off the bottom. When it goes up, slack line it back down. Watch your line. When your line goes limp, reel your slack, pop it again. You got to be very quickly, because the second it hits bottom, you don't want it to just lay there for 3-4 seconds. When it hits bottom, you want to be very quickly popping it back up. They're going to hit it on the fall. Both of those baits, as well as the jig, if you're popping that jig, stroking that jig, they're going to hit it on the fall. They're not going to hit it when it's coming up, and they're not going to hit it when it's laying on the bottom. It's when you pop it up and it starts to fall. So be attentive to your line. Watch your line. If it jumps as it's falling, reel down and set the hook. It will definitely get you some big bites. That's an excellent technique for that. So our third set of fish that we chased this week were in, again, starting, so we went 6 to 10 foot, and then ledges is, say, 16 to 25 foot. So we kind of have that mid-water column from 10 to 15, 16 feet. That is where we've been throwing a lot of Texas rig. Texas rig and shaky head. So the Texas rig, I've been throwing either speed worm, and again, that green pumpkin with a chartreuse tip. Right now, with them eating a lot of bluegill this time of year, it's always a good color choice. Again, baby brush hog, same deal. Green pumpkin, chartreuse. That is a 3/8 ounce weight, and using that again in that, say, 10 to 16 foot zone. Throwing it on shell bars, throwing it on grass edges, throwing it on grass ledges, out on the main river bars, anything like that. That's the type areas that we're going to be dragging those around. Same area, except more clean bottom, so more of your shell bar type situation is going to be the shaky head. Again, sticking with the baby brush hog, and that one's actually got a line wrapped up in it. There we go. The baby brush hog, same presentation, just a different look. Instead of it staying flat on the bottom when this one falls, this has got enough weight on this one to make it stand up. And I really do like that presentation out there on the shell bars. The next is just your standard shaky head worm, straight tail worm. So that is that 10 to 16 foot zone out there, whether it's being around grass or hard bottom, just choosing the head that matches. The fourth set of situation that we fished this week is from that 0 to 6 foot. So literally hit everything from 0 to 25 foot this week in water columns, and doing a breakdown for you on what we threw where. The 0 to 6 foot, wacky worm. Bluegill beds, guys. The bluegill are definitely up and spawning right now, and it is a very fun bite. If you've got kids or wives or girlfriends and you're trying to get them introduced to fishing, that is a dynamite way to be able to do it. You'll get quite a few bites and quite a few quality bites. The next on the bluegill beds is just a speed worm. I really like this because if you're in some of these areas that have either a lot of blown in eelgrass, or say it's some of the smaller beds and they're kind of harder targets to hit, you could throw this beyond the bed, pull it through the grass cleanly, and get it into the bed without it being too much of an obnoxious splash right on top of it. On the bigger bluegill beds, I like the wacky worm because it lands a lot quieter, usually pulls all the bluegill to it and gets the bass's attention. But that one I do like if I'm in, say, in a grass flat and you just got kind of like small little openings. You can throw that beyond the bed and pull it cleanly up to the bed and kind of enter it a little bit quieter without spooking the fish out of it. So that was primarily everything that we did this week. But because it's on the deck today, I'm going to show it to you. We actually did break out frogs today. Or I'm sorry, no, it wasn't today, it was yesterday. Same clients 2 days in a row. 3 days in a row, technically. But yesterday evening, they wanted to throw frog for a little bit, just see whether or not there was a bite there. I told them that I had not done it yet this year, and I could not guarantee that there was, but if they wanted to do it, I had an area that definitely looked right. There was some bluegill beds in the area, so we knew that the fish were in the area, and if the fish had pulled off of the bluegill beds, there was definitely mats there for them to be able to get under. So we went in there and we threw frogs. So we threw both the popping frog as well as the hollow belly. We did not catch a fish on it, but we did have 2 blow-ups on it. So is that bite there? I don't know. I don't think that it'll be too far long before, you can definitely do that as a pattern. The hotter it gets, these fish are looking for shade and getting underneath them. Definitely it's getting there, but I don't know that it's something that I personally will be chasing, week after week until, something substantial actually becomes a true pattern. But that's basically it, guys. That's everything that we did this week. I hope this information helps you out with the week coming up. And again, I apologize about not getting a video out last week with me being on vacation. But until next week, I hope to see you guys out on the water and tight lines.